Well, next up, we have XL Esports Pillars of Performance Strategy. So please welcome from XL Esports, Performance Manager for BTXL and Fortnight, Ewan Bufton, and Sam Blackett, Performance Manager for Valorant. Welcome to the stage.
Cool. Hi everyone. I'm Ewan Bufton. I am Performance Manager at XL Esports and I focus on our League of Legends Academy team BTXL and also our Fortnite roster.
Yeah, so I'm Sam Blackett, as obviously, thanks for introducing us. I work with the Valorant team, trying to, obviously, as we talk about in this presentation, trying to create that high-level performance structure around our sort of very high-level players.
Yeah, so we focus mainly on outside the game and how we can create a framework in our players to make sure they hit the elite level. So at XL, we have invested quite heavily into a holistic approach. We focus on developing players, as I said, outside the game, and we think this approach will help players develop their careers and come away from XL learning more than just the game and how to play the game. So we'll take you through a few steps. We'll start with a day in the life of a professional esports player, and then move on to our framework that we base outside the game. So these are the pillars of performance. These include sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and the psychology mental game. We'll then talk about in-game practice a little bit, give you an insight to how much time these guys invest into the game, and yeah, give you a little summary.
Yeah, so I think, as Ewan said, our role within the industry and our organisation is to help these players perform to the best of their level, and that doesn't just include the in-game. We hear these stories of players reaching the very top from competing in their bedroom 16 hours a day, but it's our job to help them to understand that this sort of holistic approach helps them both inside and outside of the game. So I'm not going to run you through every single minute of every waking day, but you can see that within the esports and the really high level of competition, it's our job to really help the players balance their lifestyle, so have some time away from the computer screens, have social time as well, but also obviously have that impact and that focus on the in-game, because that's what they're ultimately paid to do. So we try and get these players in a really good structure and routine. We can have the players training anywhere between 5 and 6 days a week, and obviously we schedule that heavily around competition and when we're in season. So as you can see, getting the players up nice and relatively early for esports players. I think there's a really gaming culture around esports where a lot of young players, stay up till we don't even imagine those numbers of hours in the morning, very early mornings for a lot of people. So we're trying to sort of break that culture and get them up relatively early into the morning so they get a lot of, obviously, vitamin D and sunshine. So yeah, get the players up, have a really nice, healthy breakfast, which we'll go on to talk about, getting them sort of body functional, moving, get them into team sports, interacting with, obviously, their peers, and social interactions really key for that. And then we'll move into the office where we sort of begin our preparation for the day. Often practice can last 5 or 6 hours, depending on how we work through the season. And we obviously have those review areas and practice areas where the players can really hone their skills. One of our jobs within that sort of day is to make sure that the players have regular breaks. So we take them outside for stretches. We make sure that they're taking on all the nutrients to perform at their highest level every day during practice. We then sort of move on through the day where we sort of begin to wind down the players. So obviously they've had a very stressful experience in that sort of high level environment, and we take them through obviously the relaxation strategies and make sure that they're well rested and revert for the next sort of day. So that's sort of how we structure our day. Very rough, obviously, during the season, and when the competitions ramp up, that can really change. But yeah, that's sort of what we're looking at on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and as you say, really packed days. So this is why we try and implement these pillars of performance to help them do this, because they're doing this six days a week minimum to be the best. So pillars of performance, starting on sleep. It's one of our pillars, but probably the foundation behind all of them. Super important. Obviously, sleep's really key for stress management, anxiety management. These guys are performing with up to hundreds of thousands of people watching them every game. So the amount of pressure on these guys is super key. So we want them to be in the right mind frame to perform at the best of their ability on stage. So obviously, we base this around sleep. We really encourage players to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep and a really consistent sleep cycle. You say players that coming into esports generally haven't really focused on this, and they can be going to bed at really late hours, missing out on really vital sunlight in the morning and fixing their cardiac rhythm. This affects their sleep efficiency. They're not sleeping well, therefore they need to sleep longer, waste a lot of time in bed, where they could be practicing at a higher level. So we really aim to create a good schedule for these players where they can be stress relaxed and do everything they need to do to be the best. We actually monitor players' sleep with use of sleep devices. This shows how much hours they're sleeping, how well they're sleeping, if they're getting the right sleep cycles like deep sleep, light sleep, and REM sleep. Just super important to make sure they're all on peak performance. If you can wake up earlier, in better frame of mind than your opposition, then you're already miles ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that when we talk about sleep and the science behind it, there's a lot of sort of deep mental approach to that, and we're just trying to help them be the best they can be. So a lot of it isn't rocket science. I sound like I'm undermining my whole degree here, but yeah, a lot of it is very simple human functioning really, and we speak a lot of that across the organisation, not just with these high-level athletes, but also with our co-workers and our colleagues. You know, if you can get that basic functioning of human, you're going to perform. It's not that not that complex. So in terms of just the mental side of it, obviously sleep plays a huge part in this, but one of the mental and the psychological things that competing at a high level and this sort of culture around sitting in your bedroom all day not talking to people is that we really encourage players and athletes to share their emotions and speak up. A lot of teams in esports particularly, they're very sheltered individuals and they're not used to sort of confronting each other and speaking to each other about problems, and that's something that we really encourage them to sort through their problems. We are individuals in the way that we play the game, but as a collective and a company and an esports team, we really encourage everyone to come together to talk on a personal level, inside and outside of the game. Myself and Ewan work on the sort of team building aspect and the cohesion, but then we also look at things such as relaxation within the team, working together to perform to the best that we can.
Yes, coming on to our third, nutrition. So, as you say, not really rocket science. It's just to make sure they have a balanced, healthy nutritional intake in order for them to be at the best. As you say, waking up, energized, ready to go, and having the energy throughout the day to practice these long hours, because they can be practicing for 6 to 8 hours a day with exercise on top. So really important. We make sure they provide all the right vitamins and minerals. We performance test our players to see if they have any deficiencies at the start of season and really cater to the individual. You say in esports, as there isn't really like a culture built yet, people come from lots of different backgrounds, abilities, people coming from playing in their bedroom every day and not really snacking right, eating right. So players come in with a range of different areas that we can improve in their nutritional, sleep, exercise, all of them. So we really try and cater to the individuals. So a huge way we do that is through food. We make sure, obviously, they have in the morning the right carbohydrates that shows slow release energy to kickstart their day, get the body working, last all the way through the day. Into lunch then they have carbs that can last all the way through practice, some proteins to make them feel nice and full, and also lots of veg, vitamins, minerals. As you say, if individuals have any areas where there might be some deficiencies in certain vitamins, we'd supply some supplements as like a last measure. And also snacks throughout the day, making sure they have simple carbohydrates, natural sugars, lots of fruits, nuts, proteins to keep them full. And also, we'd like to keep a big variety, so players can easily be bored. We bring in different fruits, and eating with variety is really how you get all your different vitamins and minerals in. So it's one we really focus on. They have a strict diet plan. We cater for them breakfast, lunch and dinner to make sure we can monitor what they're eating. We do tests to see what foods they like, dislike, and we really try and cater the diet plan to the individuals to ensure they're enjoying the food day in, day out. Obviously, water, hydration, super important in these players to make sure their mind's working at full capacity, almost like the oil to a car.
I think one thing to note is we sound like we're strict and we tell them what to do, but these players, what we've seen in the last sort of 10, however many years, is that esports is really shifting into a professionalism, particularly in the human performance side of it. It's gone from, like I mentioned, playing all hours in your bedroom, earning a bit of money, to really signing big contracts and performing in front of hundreds of thousands of people. So our job is to really make sure that the performance is really taken to the next level. one of the other things, and the next pillar of performance, is exercise. So we spend a lot of time as in business sitting at a desk, or particularly in gaming, sitting in these really awkward positions that obviously affect our lumbar spine, and that affects how our posture works and how our body functions on a daily basis. So we really encourage players to become active. A lot of the culture is just sitting at a desk all day, maybe having takeaway foods, which is what we're sort of, it's our kryptonite almost when a player comes to us in that sense. But we work on a lot of body functional movements. We're not expecting these players to go and run a marathon every weekend, but it's sort of how can we inform and help these players to go from the posture of sitting in a chair to actually, being a healthy individual inside and outside of the game. So a lot of performance we base on results. So our job is to help the players perform to be the best they can be, whether that is with sleep, nutrition, psychology. It's just our job to help them function best as a human. A lot of these esports players, it can be a very short career, it can be a long, fulfilling career, and it's our job to make sure that socially, physically, that they're in the best place to be once we sort of transition them out and into the gaming world. As Ewan said, and I spoke about the sort of day-to-day, practice can last for a lot of time over, and it's a really consuming experience for them. So we use a range of sort of scientific feedback and also video reviews to talk to the players about how they can perform better as a team and both as an individual. And like I said, it's not just the players. We have a massive back staff of team, coaches, performance staff like ourselves, and we play a huge role in supporting the players and help them to be the best they can be, both in the game, outside of the game, as a human, and working as a team.
Yeah, it's supporting that ability to support players as people. You hear of these horror stories of people with burnout and ending their careers so short, and in the future having issues with things like diabetes. It's sort of our essential necessity to order to change this and help this, that we want players to develop as people and be healthy and look after their future, not just when they're with us, but also when they move on to other teams or in future careers. So really important. So all these pillars of performance we focus on individually. Do they make a difference in esports and their performance? Yeah, it's quite hard to tell how much, but it's about interlinking all of these into helping players feel better about themselves, be better people. Therefore, they have better mind, and going into games, competitions, stressful situations, they'll be more ready to perform at their best and hopefully bring home some medals.
I think that's all we've got for our performance slides there. Hopefully you learned a little bit about a day in the life of an esports player. I think we've got a couple of questions coming up.
Yeah, feel free to come take a seat.
Thank you.
I mean, I have to say, I definitely learned a lot. I don't want to age myself, but I remember when esports was very different to that. As you said, it was absolutely not about being a well-rounded individual, but so much as, people think of gamers as, the stereotypes sat in the dark playing games. And it's not so much that as it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of sitting in front of a screen, like you said. So I'm interested as to how both of you got into this. Ewan, I'll start with you, because it is a role that we haven't seen huge demand for. So how did you get into it?
Yeah, so Sam will say similar background, but obviously coming from a background in sports science, I've been really willing to help people learn more about themselves and how they can be fitter and healthier, and sort of having that outlook on life as how we can help people in every day, how they can get better every day. They say if you get 1% better every week, you're going to be 10 times better after a couple of years. So it's really about approaching people, how can you tap into their individual needs and focusing on that area. Also having background, me and Sam have both come from an elite background experience, myself rugby, Sam swimming, and also having an idea of those stressful situations and how you can help players who may not be accustomed to these stressful areas, how they can manage that and balance that. So yeah, it's really focusing on the individual, their individual needs and how you can help. So it's really having a need to and a want to help people develop and become better people.
So Sam, obviously, it sounds like you have a similar background, so feel free to add any of the details. But I'm also interested in what's next in this field of of human performance and managing players as more than just, people sat in front of a screen.
Yeah, I think Gavin, who spoke earlier, mentioned it. We're really pushing the barrier of human performance. I think like we said, it's not actually rocket science. There's a lot of people that we've spoke to in the industry that have a background in sports science, not necessarily in gaming, but it's how we can transition from traditional sport into esports and combine the two. I think esports, with its emerging, it's massive, like it's building every day almost, and traditional sports has this really good foundation, and it's almost our job to combine the two and, you know, move that forward. We've spoken in length about sort of creating performance centers where we can come and test esports athletes. I think the amount of data and science that we can get out of esports performance in general and athletes, I think that's where I definitely see the future heading. We did say that we're trying to promote this sort of healthy lifestyle and get all of these physical activity and the psychology in, and I think that the future, there's not ever a future in esports because it's always growing, it's always expanding, but I think that one of our jobs and moving forward is to really build the culture around how we can facilitate and help these players every day in the game and out of the game as well.
I have to say, watching your presentation, I wish I had someone who was just managing my life like that, making sure I'm eating, making sure I'm sleeping. So I wanted to finish with a really quick question, just kind of one sentence from each of you. What is the one tip, if you could give somebody one tip to kind of improve their performance and general well-being in the gaming space, what's your one tip?
I'll go first. Set an alarm every morning. That is my one thing. I think, I'm not sure if it was myself or you mentioned, but we spoke about sleep is the underlying pillar of our 4 pillars of performance. When you look at psychology, sleep plays a massive role in that. And if you get up and you have a set routine with breakfast, lunch and dinner, that helps your nutrition. And then physical activity, if you're more awake, you're more alert, and you have all of these things. And I think whether you go to bed at 11 p.m. or 1 a.m., if you set an alarm, you're going to fall into these natural cycles of, you know, your cardiac's going to improve because you're going to have a cardiac rhythm, and there's loads of science behind it. But I think set an alarm that suits you, that you can stick to Monday to Friday when you're working. I think that would be my number one.
That's a really good one. What's yours?
Just trust the process. You say that 1% better every day. You may have a day where you slightly fall behind, but just trust it, keep at it. You will improve, you will get better, and general life and performance will improve. You just have to really trust in it.
Those are really good. I wasn't sure how good they'd be for like one tip, but they were really fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ewan Bufton and Sam Blackett. Can we have a huge round of applause? Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Thank you.